just like service to
space. Like you do your job.
But he does like age
Smaller than
5 to 18.
You hope 18. You raise them right.
Yeah. So
Hard thing to change at the office.
it's a little quiet. This is slow enough for us. The timing doesn't have this. I'm trying to sit in on these interviews.
We use real That's good. The Spur, have you been down there?
I never used the
Yeah, just mix it really well.
It's such a struggle. Like, well, all this
It's my pleasure to the candidate for the department head position in soil and crop sciences, Chris Pires. Yeah, I respond to both. What do you prefer? Pires, great. And he will now be presenting his seminar as a part of this process for the position for the head and professor in soil and crop sciences. A little bit about Chris's background. Chris has 22 years of experience in research, teaching, and service. He grew up in Northern California, where he received his undergraduate degree from UC Berkeley in biology in 1990. And then he worked for 4 years in the private and public sectors in San Francisco, California, in Bellingham, Washington, before he came back to school and was a PhD student from 1994 to 2000 in the botany department at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And his dissertation work was on molecular phylogenetics of monocots, and he also minored in the history and philosophy of science department. And then after that, he was a postdoc from 2000 to 2001. He was an NSF NATO postdoc at the Royal Botanical Gardens, where he worked on molecular cytogenetics of recently evolved phytoploid plants. Polyploids. New word for me. And after that, he did another postdoc from 2001 to 2004, where he went back to Wisconsin in the agronomy department, and there he investigated polyploid plants again. Canola. In natural and resynthesized hybrids of canola, Brassica, Marcus, and was one of the first to examine the genetics and epigenetics effects of polyploid on gene expression using genome-wide tools such as microarrays to RNA sequencing. Then from 2005 and all the way to 2021, he was at the University of Missouri, Columbia. He rose through the ranks of assistant, associate, and full professor, and ended up becoming the curator's distinguished professor there. He also won several local and national awards for his research creativity, including AAAS, Reuters Highly Cited, and for his skill for mentoring undergraduate students. Then from 2018 to 2021, he was the Associate Dean for Research at the College of Arts and Sciences that includes more than 28 departments, 500 faculty, and he saw a research budget of about $20 million. Then he decided to leave in 2021, and he became the Dean of Science at the New York Botanical Gardens, where he advised them on the strategic plan for 2030. Then he went back, since I think, that was not quite what he had expected. So he went back to the University of Missouri where he's now currently appointed, and he's publishing with students and finishing up the remaining graduate students there. So he's here to explore the opportunity to potentially join our department in the future. So please welcome Chris.
Well, thank you so much for all being here. Can you hear me? Am I okay? This room is.
I can.
So
Yeah, it's weird.
I'll do my best. So if anybody has trouble today, then I'll speak up. So I got 40 slides in 40 minutes, so let's buckle up and go. We got time. We'll make it. So I spent many years trying to describe on an airplane, and people ask you what you do for a living. Oh, I work on polyploidy, hybrid vigor, heterosis. And then finally, after about 10 years, I wanted to tell people I work on the dogs plant world. Because not everybody knows that a Chihuahua and a Great Dane are a dog, one species, but not everybody knows that cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower are one species, right? Just like a dog. And so if you go on YouTube and type plants in the dog world, you can see all the amazing things my undergrads have done with this kind of idea, one of the plant symbols and so on. Now, if I did not want to talk to people on the airplane, I would just tell people I'm an evolutionary biologist. And that would kind of stop the So today I was tasked with talking about these three things: undergraduate, stakeholders, and research. And so I have about 10 minutes on each of those, but I wanted to spend the first 10 minutes kind of giving you an introduction that the search committee already knows about my motivation, vision, and values, and how those I think align quite well with what's going on here in Colorado. Because I think for me it's pretty obvious that Colorado State would be a place where I could make a really valuable. So we all can sing from the same hymn book if we're at a land-grant university, because we can say this is what they're about. Certainly over the last 5 years, I've done that. So I grew up in a rural part of Northern California. Nobody in my family had gone to college. I was adopted by this Portuguese Catholic family in the middle of Dairyland. And if you had told me when I was 8 that I'd be a college student at Berkeley, I would have laughed. And if you told me when I was an undergrad at Berkeley, I would be a curator's distinguished professor at Missouri, I would have laughed. And if you told me when I started at Missouri that I would be an associate dean of research and then dean of science at the New York Botanic Gardens, I would have fallen over and said, there's just no way. I think the point is that land-grant universities can be transformational at any age, pre-K to grade, and that's always been true. So I started my undergraduate journey at University of California, Berkeley. It was a very interesting time. It was during the height of the AIDS crisis. It was during the apartheid era. And it was when the campus became less than half white. So there were a lot of conversations that I felt I was pretty prepared for about diversity, equity, and inclusion, even as an undergraduate, when these things were going on. I started in genetics and philosophy, moved to zoology and linguistics, settled on biology and rhetoric, spent a lot of time at the botanical garden. And I would consider this transition of my life being, rural kid moves to the city. And as Thomas said, I worked for 4 years. I learned I didn't need to make a lot of money working as a consultant in the Bay Area. I had many friends my age who are retired because they chose to make their $10, $20 million. I didn't do that. I then moved to the state of Washington. Instead of doing the Peace Corps in Central America or Africa, I did wetland restoration with indigenous groups and with developers and farmers, and a lot of work with dairy cattle folks in the state of Washington for 2 years. And that's when I decided my dream was to go to the University of Wisconsin, get a PhD in botany, and become a professor at a place like Cal State Chico. And I would say during that time, however, though, I really learned that to have the impact I wanted to be at a R1 university. You don't get to pick where you go. And I ended up going to the University of Missouri, which, like I said, was not what I imagined myself. And then I went from the peace-loving granola botany part of campus to London, back to the Monsanto agronomy part of campus. And for me, that was a really, I call this agronomy, a big shift from thinking about basic science questions about orchids and their microbiome to how can we make a better canola or a better broccoli. But still holding on to things. And then finally at Missouri, as I'll describe in my talk, the big impact I think I had is on undergraduates, which I think is what this really is. And I took that all the way from being an assistant to associate full professor in developing the idea of team science, which, like pedagogy, is its own discipline, to coaching junior faculty and staff to build, write those big, large grants, whether they're RUs or whatever. And I would think over the course of this time, my own personal development has really been one of moving about equality to equity, which I can talk about now. So in addition to the land grant mission, I think the second thing I highlighted in my motivation for this is sense of place, belonging, and community. So I really appreciate the diversity of nature. I performed field work in California. California's place for me to go see the biggest, largest, and oldest trees in the world in a 3-hour drive. I did field work in California to Costa Rica. I grew up in Gridley, California, which is the kiwi capital of the United States. So what's the next kiwi? You can think about what your future commodities are like. And then I also appreciate the diversity of culture. So like I said, I've always been biology, history, rhetoric, philosophy. So these are things I've continued to study, writing little papers on the side on metaphors and evolutionary biology, and also interacting with people across the globe, right? So I've been in 30 countries. I've spent a lot of time in Asia and Europe, not so much in Africa. So I would say I'm a first-gen college student. I like to connect people from different backgrounds. I enjoy engaging people about science and society. And normally I would have a land acknowledgement here, but I just would point out that Colorado State is actually ahead of the game on this compared to some other institutions I've been. So you should be proud of that. It's tedious after all. Indigenous people stay. Okay, so this is my most important slide. So you can fall asleep after this, but this is really what I'm going to tell you. So I will advocate and act for excellence for diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. And an associate dean in arts and science, where we have departments of African American studies, women's gender studies, and things like along these lines, along with history and English. You have to put this as number one. And I've understood when I interact with people in other colleges, at least in Missouri, education and other, or engineering and others, if you don't have this as your number one, it falls off the charts, right? It becomes an add-on in the end. So you don't put it at the bottom as a foundation, you put it at the top. So the second thing is, what are you going to do that's world-class? What are you going to do that's unique? Where are people coming here from? So this morning I walked in and there was a visiting scientist from Pakistan. Why is somebody from Pakistan coming here, right? Like, what is your brand that's bringing people from all over? Faculty and staff development. So nothing works. Nothing works unless the faculty are learning how to get their career going, how to be new leaders, how to become entrepreneurs, and the staff are there also to move things forward. So I actually specialized in the last few years in creating opportunities for staff to move around campus, not just within the college. Strategic investments. You don't have a lot of money to spend. So how are you going to align them? What partners can you make? And what things are you going to double down on versus say, you know what, we're going to outsource them? And then finally, engagement and entrepreneurship. Now that political appointments for presidents at universities are former senators and things like this, you have to really think about what it is that we're doing at land grants and what our purpose is, right? And so if we're not paying attention to the things that we historically have not paid attention to, we're not going to survive. So these are the things that I see from the handbook. So the good news for me, having done a lot of research on the campus-wide vision and the departmental vision, is I'm completely aligned with the vision that you've all articulated. Strategies to reverse climate change, reimagining how we're going to restore a fragile plant evolving agriculture, developing agro-ecosystems of tomorrow. I'm very excited by this vision. And also the values. So I can't think of anything more important right now than belonging, community, and the new metric for success, are people happy at work? Is there joy in the workplace? So I am highly motivated to join any group that is honest about these things. So this is what I want to find out while I'm here. Are these for real or are these just words on paper? Okay, so undergraduates. So for these next 3 sections for my homework, I have a very strong idea about what I would do, but I learned a long time ago, if you want to get somewhere fast, you don't start out with something strong. You start out with getting at least 3/4 of the people to agree to what the problem is and what the solution is, and who's going to be accountable for what metrics that matter. So I'm going to, in each of these 3 parts, I'm going to co-create a shared understanding of what the challenges and opportunities are, and we're going to talk about these over the next few days, what a shared plan of action will look like and what metrics for success and accountability would look like, and not reinvent the wheel, because you guys have already done a lot of work on this. What I've done at MU that is relevant to this, and then just some ideas about what I would be excited to bring here. We'll talk more about that as we go. So first, undergraduate recruitment. When you become a dean, you end up reading things that maybe you read most of the scientific literature, but now you're reading the Chronicle of Higher Ed, or you're reading national trends. The national trends are dire. Number of students is decreasing. College is becoming more unaffordable. The capacity for people to pivot online is highly variable. And so what is it that you can do to reach out of state? And what is it that you can do that you're not cannibalizing each other? You're not going to get, it's not a win if you're just stealing students from other culture. Right? That's not a win for the university or the college. What is going on locally? So at the college, CSU Pueblo, CSU Global, what are some things that we all agree are targets and challenges? And then finally, for the department, what really matters for, so I asked the heads of department this morning, is it an existential crisis if a new president comes in, inserts a RAM model, and now you have to have 10 undergrads for every faculty member? That's happened at other places. That's sunk Delaware, Illinois. There was like coming around for the 100 undergrads to every 10 faculty, right? That's a big lift. But is that what really matters? So for example, could you have more degree programs, or could you have more credit hours? So I spend a lot of time as an administrator talking about shared credit, because if things could be shared, then you have some other possible solutions. So what are some opportunities? So you all know these better than I do, but I see CSU Spur and CSU Global, this extended campus, these partners, particularly, this is something I've been specializing in recently, community colleges, historically Black colleges, and tribal colleges and universities as places that you can partner with quite effectively, especially if sustainability and environmental stewardship are part of your mission. Those should be really using this. What are some non-traditional programs you can have? So you can engage students who even aren't interested in college with micro-credentialing, some online things that are more games, they are classes. And then what I've also really specialized in are pre-college summer programs. Now, we used to use those in Missouri to attract kind of honor students, to keep kind of students in state. But now you could do this in Denver. You could do this with Hispanic communities. You can do this in a way to reach what I think this campus can do, which is really focus on the rural and the underserved. You don't compete with Boulder. You go to the places that they're not at. And then finally, this is, I think, the biggest question I have for you all as faculty and for the various heads of departments and the deans, is can you create a shared solutions that align to the college and campus plan and work together with staff? So you're not going to, every department's not going to have their own undergrad recruiter, I don't think. But can you create places where all the college and ag departments, or even other departments in engineering or education and other colleges work together? So in short, grow the pie bigger, not divide the pie. So I was thinking about what is unique about this campus and the resources it has versus, say, an Oregon State or a Michigan State or a North Carolina State, whatever you consider your peer institutions. You've spent $250 million, I think, developing this resource. I look at, I asked for hundreds of images, so I picked a few of them that I thought were interesting. Like, okay, you can do explore lighting, you can explore farming, you can explore, food is the sexy drug that brings people to the table, right? So we can engage and recruit students and alumni by growing, cooking, analyzing plants, fungi, microbes. The soil, water, and plant testing lab, the diagnostics lab are now anchored in a space that's closer to the customers. I think engineering here already has a formal program for recruiting students. So the ACT's holding something similar to that. This facility is shovel ready to write NSF RU grants, NSF RAMPS grants, USD equivalents to that. So I would view my job as the head of department to lead those efforts, if not do most of it, connect to entrepreneurs. And for retention, it's not just about pre-K students, it's pre-K to grade, right? You need to have a whole continuum of alumni engagement, and there are so many retirees coming here who would love to donate to environmental efforts, right? That's why they come here for the mountains or the trout fishing or whatever. So how do you get them involved? And I really see this as a too big to fail investment. So what can the department do to ally and align to this? So with stakeholders, my experience has been it's more listening and learning and letting people speak than it is offering them a plan, right? So I would be really keen to join. I think this was a grad student class, right, that goes around every year. Somebody sent me the slides for this. So going to each of these extension or research statements and finding out not only what are they doing there, what science are we doing there, what undergrads are close by, is there a community college next door? Like, again, where can you recruit students in the communities that they're next to? Okay, so what would a shared plan look like? Well, you've already written a plan. Your objective 1 was about undergrads. Your objective 2 that you wrote was about grad students. So your 3 objectives that you've written down are enhancing student professional skills, recruiting a diverse student population, and improving internship opportunities. So a question I have is this still the plan? Is this a pre-COVID plan, pre-pandemic plan, or is it now been adapted to the current environment and the current budget model? So again, for me as an administrator, what I've often found is the solutions are not dividing the pie and figuring out how each of us can do more, because everybody's already doing more than they can. But can we grow the pie bigger by having shared staff or shared faculty responsibilities across departments, across colleges? So for example, if I'm on the road, I don't want to be competing for students with horticulture. I want to be saying, we have this amazing program here at Colorado State, and here's all the things you can do here. And oh, by the way, if you're interested in soils, go here. If you're interested in vertical farming, go there. You know what I mean? So we could all do this for each other, as can the other heads of department. Right? And if there's a digital ag space, for example, where lots of companies I found are willing to invest in, who are the partners you can have, either in natural sciences or engineering? How can you micro-brand things? How can you create programs that are going to be attractive to people? Because if I get into a line with 2,000 biology students, 90% of them are pre-med, but there are the ones who say, oh, I'm really interested in plants, or I'm really interested in food, or I'm really interested in sensor startup. And you can find those students to be your students. So I just want to, I'm not going to talk about my research program. What I am going to do is I'm going to show you how I created an ecosystem of postdocs and grad students to drive undergraduate research. That's the outcome. And then good science happens on top of that. And then that's how you recruit more students in the industry. So this is my lab a couple years ago. So my steady state was about a couple postdocs, 1 visiting scientist, often from Asia, because canola is huge in China, Pakistan. 5 grad students, 7 undergrads, and we published 10 papers a year, roughly. Everybody would go give a talk. Most of the grad students were GRP award winners. The undergrads would go on and get scholarships to go to Europe and things like that. And we're a pretty diverse team. And so teamwork makes the dream work. And lab meeting every week was often 10 minutes or 15 minutes of, what are we talking about? Oh, it was the Kansas City football game. Patrick Mahomes took a knee. The fans booed. So we talk about race relations in Missouri for 10 or 15 minutes. Oh, and it's on Zoom. So the parents in the background are listening. And I know that there's a rural conservative family listening to his background. And I know that in Kansas City, mixed race parents are listening also. And can we have a conversation about racism over Zoom? Yes. And have that be a good thing, right? Can you bring people together to have a honest discussion about, this is about football. This isn't about what's going on in the classroom, right? So, as a diverse group, engaging and learning from each other requires empathy and understanding for conversations about the sciences. So I think it's really easy to punch down as a senior faculty member. Apologizes and leads the way towards creating a culture of kindness. So here's the 2 things I would really be excited to bring here. One is freshman, it was called FRIPS, Freshman in Plant Science here would be freshmen in ag science, right? Because you have that entomology and soil science and all the things. And then BIPS was bioinformatics and plant science. These were NSF programs that were funded, but we got industry to contribute to them. And what I call creating a playbook for success. So if you have people, plants, and projects with purpose, you can lure students in with environmental movement concerns or food interests, and you can do things where you get students interested in field, lab work, farm-to-table things, communication skills, marketing, and career. And then we do the same thing. And so what I found over time is each year I would ask every student, well, how can we do this better? Like constant feedback loop of what we can do to improve it. And then have the seniors be the mentors for the freshmen and sophomores. And then they graduate and leave, and I would have annual lab meeting, and I would invite people back online, and they would all come and have things to say. So I'm going to show you what some graduates from my, undergrads from my lab came back to tell the future students over Zoom last year. So this is Michelle Tang. She got her bachelor's degree in 2013. She then got and coached her to get NSF GRP to go to Davis to do her postdoc with Siobhan Brady, or PhD with Siobhan Brady and then Cleveland. She's now a postdoc at Seattle. And so over Zoom, she would say something like this: get in a lab as a freshman, don't be afraid to make mistakes, commit to things that excite you, make a large university feel small, and expand your network for opportunities. And then Kevin Bird would get on, and Kevin graduated in 2016. He was one of these bio-sci philosophy double majors, double honors thesis. He was a Fulbright fellow, went to Belgium, did his PhD at Michigan State, got a GRP that I helped him get, and now he's a postdoc at Davis. So he would say, have a clear goal in mind, figure out the path to get there, develop a supportive community for your emotional and mental health, keep up your hobbies, and have fun in college. And he and another student developed this Code and Coffee thing at Missouri that got really big, and then we ended up Black Girls Who Code and Girls Who Code and all this other kind of stuff. And then finally, in 2018, Julia Brose was a biochemistry student, and she got a Fulbright to, or equivalent to go to Ireland. She's now a PhD student at Michigan State. Also helped her get an NSF GRP. And she would say, apply for things you find interesting. Read widely across science and literature. Never be afraid to ask questions. Build your CV with inspiring examples. Practice your own language. Have fun. And so what I think I built here was, these are students, alumni, who keep coming back every year to engage the freshmen and engage the sophomores and be a model for them of, oh, I can see, they can't see like themselves in me, a 55-year-old guy, but they can see themselves in somebody who's only 4 or 5 years older than them, like, or 8 years older. And you create what I call a constellation of mentors that ideally they keep engaging with their passion time and hopefully someday. So what I've done in Missouri is recruit undergrads and grad students to these really strong interdisciplinary programs. I had 4 hats: interdisciplinary plant group, Immunoinformatics Institute, Life Science Center. And then show people, here are the jobs. They're no longer jobs in academia, they're now jobs with the program groups. And then every president, chancellor, and provost says, Chris, you've done amazing things with undergrads. How do you make it scale? Oh my, I don't even want to finish it. Grad students and postdocs. You need invest in more grad students and postdocs, because then I can do more and create an ecosystem of undergraduate peer advisors and grad students. And if you're trying to increase faculty from undergraduates in the groups, recruit postdocs in the groups and keep them. Right? Train them in place to work on wheat or soil microbes and so forth. So things I'd be excited to bring here, one is you already have some really good brands, but enhancing the brands we have and connecting to other things, whether it's microbes, genetics, genomics, data science, sustainability. Expand recruitment across the urban and rural continuum. And what I would call create an honors college for everyone for life, right? Keep having people engaged and feeling like they're part of something that's important. And then have catalyze collaborations. Okay. So this next part is about stakeholder engagement. So first, what are the challenges? So again, I would look at what are the, and I would ask you, what are the national trends in evolving stakeholders? So I've certainly seen some national trends from USDA, DOE, and NSF. There's a whole new effort right now to move toward the nitrogen cycle, for example, in USDA. I think this department is well positioned to move on that. There are things going on with DOE and DARPA with sentinel plants. You have sentinel microbes. And certainly this NSF TIP directorate, first directorate to be erected in a long time, is going to be an amazing place to start up. And then in Colorado, what commodity groups are rising and falling? Everybody's interested in hemp and cannabis, but what about pro-sub millet, right? There's Dryland Genetics is a whole company between Nebraska and Colorado that's working on that. Or what other new commodities are coming along? And then finally, locally, what are your local stakeholders that, whether it's industry, government agencies, Forest Service, or even, I love this CAS Hub Night. Ask the students what they're interested in. They're showing up with that. So I think in terms of opportunities, again, you have CSU Spur. You have this amazing reach across the entire state. There should be a lot of political goodwill on. What are the existing field? Like if I was making plant sentinels, because brassicas are everywhere, I put them all over the state. Like I would have my science group over the entire, to the degree that was possible and practical. And then what's the innovative programming that you can do that would also be unique? So again, it could be sensors, it could be ag tech, it could be other lots of possibilities. And I'm sure that many of them you're already doing. I'm just scratching the surface of what I know. And then again, finally, it's a small department. How can you align what you're good at with what's going on across the college and across the campus? So you've already written a plan in your own strategic plan, was your objective 4, strategic plan 4. So you had enhanced communication and collaboration with stakeholders, Colorado producers, and emerging issues. And again, I think, and I've read your plan. I like your plan. Is this still relevant? Do you have any updates to this? Is there something new that you want to do? Is there some online abilities that are out there now? And then again, can you unify efforts across? And I'm always looking for a win-win, right? So what is it that we share as a problem that we can create solutions that are a larger group as opposed to a smaller group? So I think engaging in industry, I don't know what is in place. At least from the little homework I've done, you have some amazing partners already. I mean, the building we're in, right? It's the nutrient building. So last night I asked the dean about these 300 alumni, and he said, no, it's closer to 500. So I said, show me the list. So there you go. He's like, well, I'm like, see, you can't hide the list from me. Like, I need to know who we can talk to. Can I work with the other chairs or heads of department to engage folks? So I've been here twice before to give a seminar, and I'm coming here again at the end of October. I think all 3 of these trips have been sponsored or paid for in part by Cargill because I work on canola. I've done a lot of work in China, and they're very interested in bringing Chinese germplasm to canola, and canola rotates with wheat. And so anyway, there's lots of, and they're hiring many postdocs. Benson Hill, it's hard to call it a startup because it was based out of Monsanto, but they have so many internships right now, not just for traditional ag, but in data science, genome editing. Are we training our students for that? And then again, most of my postdocs in the last few years haven't gone into academia. They're all now working for Bayer, Corteva, Google, Nari, Syngenta. So, where are your students and postdocs? And how can you use this? And maybe it's your own startup. Right? You're inviting them to share in the profit of your own startup. So engaging Colorado groups. So my postdoc advisor, Tom Osborne, moved to Monsanto and got bought by Bayer. And I was very excited when he told me that the top 4 crops were corn, soybean, canola, cotton, because I work on canola. It's the number 3. So I'm going up saying, show me the money. And they go, okay, well, really, it's corn, and soybean. And cotton and canola are nothing. Forget telling us about your cabbages. So I don't really know here if it's wheat, and then everything else. And then it's all for cows. But and this is what I would want to know, where the return on investment is or what's the political stake. But certainly what I've been looking at what's on the various websites, your wheat group is hugely important. It has website images, alfalfa, all the other things. And what can you do to engage Colorado-specific research that supports the larger group? So last week, my best collaborators in Missouri have actually been in animal science because that's how we built data science across campus, because it was with folks in animal science. So I went and talked to Jared Decker and people over there, and I was asking them about cattle versus dairy versus what's different between Missouri and Colorado. And he's like, well, plants are cattle food. So these better be your good partners, right? And water quality is highly dependent on what cows are doing across the state. So you better, even though you're in soil crop science, you better be talking So I think thinking about how you can work across colleges. So in Michigan State, for example, between their vet med program and their college ag, recently developed a whole new curriculum around dairy science and around land management. And so are things like that happening here? Can you be part of these larger conversations? The other thing CSU has that is world-class, of course, is anything to do with water. Right? Because it's just like California. The biggest political fights I get in with my relatives in California aren't about social issues, they're about water. They deal with water. That's easy. Fish, farms, and make the cities desalinize. And we all agree. It's good. Make the cities pay for it all. But there's a lot of things that could be done between the department and these various groups. And for me, what I've seen in North Carolina State has a really good model for this, is really kind of thinking about the staff, the extension agents, like what's the professional development opportunities to make those things connect to what's going on campus even better. So my experience in this space has been being an engagement fellow at Missouri, social media, in the arts and science realm. Of course, I wasn't going out and talking to meat growers. I was going out in the music van and taking music across the state, right? Or taking addictions program across the state. Lobbying. So it took me a few times to fly to DC to find out I didn't need to visit any of the representatives or senators. I needed to go straight to Senator Blunt's office and sit down and say, this is the color money I need. NIH money, DARPA money, whatever the color money is, right? That's free money. That's tens of millions of dollars. You don't have to compete for it at 10%. And then working with businesses. So if you're developing core facilities, whether it's talking to Lumina or PacBio or microscopes, whatever, how can you have them buy in to invest in your core facilities because you're going to train people that they want to hire. And then finally engaging alumni and entrepreneurs. So in St. Louis, there's 39 North, which has done a lot of work with the Amber Center and Los Angeles and build teams and brands. So here, I'd be super excited to connect things that you already have, make them better, and to really identify unique opportunities. So I don't know what the unique opportunities are, but if I was imagining something between what the Soil Center does and the economics or whatever, like what does the carbon market look like? Or even in the philanthropy. I'm just thinking out loud here, but what are some things that you could do that would be unique or different from what's not being done at a Davis or a Wisconsin or a Cornell or another place? And then finally, really identifying resources, alumni, industry partners that integrate research, teaching, extension, and engagement. So you may have the pet project that you love. For me, it's polyploidy. But how does that translate into wheat gains or canola gains or whatever? And then people will give money for pilot projects and students. Name professorships are tough, but there are things that you can do more of it better. So finally, this last part, totally on time. We're all good. Is research and development. So the undergraduate piece I have a lot of experience in. I was the associate dean for research. I had Jan Leach's job. This is my jam. This part is my jam. So what are the trends for evolving research? So every president is trying to figure out how they're going to double research dollars. So Michigan State, they've gone from 400 million to 800 million, and then have a $1 billion campaign. But what are they doing that other places aren't doing? Well, they've all got state support to hire 100 new faculty, staff, right? They've made an investment to do that. So what I found in Missouri is if I wanted to double things, I could do it briefly. I can get all of you to give me 10% of your time to write the big center grants, but that's a very short-term gain, and that's not going to get you to double. It can get you up 25%. So what are the new things that you can do? So again, I'm pretty excited about this TIP directorate in NSF, which is really going to be about businesses. And then in Colorado, what research is growing with industry partners? So if Spur is going to be the place that we're going to have a lot of contact, what's going on there? What do you yourselves as individual entrepreneurs, what connections do you have that are national or international? And then finally for the college and the department, again, I know everybody's already stretched to, and if you weren't, you certainly were during the pandemic. I don't know how many people were putting their kids on to Zoom classes and whatever, but there's a lot. But how can you really, really focus and prioritize what things are most important? They're going to move all the needles, because there's probably not that many places to do that. And the key here, I think, is align. How can you get people to align? Or how And then everybody's always asking you to do more for less. What can we stop? What's the class that you're still teaching that only has 4 students? What's the commodity group that is no longer delivering money or political capital? What's the having a really honest conversation, and then making sure the dean will back your play if you stop doing it? Because my guess is there's probably a lot. So one question I have is, how nimble can you be, and is there culture for change? Right? Are people open to change? I'm hoping the answer is yes. Okay. And then what are the opportunities? So growing partnerships. Can we solve real world problems? And so again, this is my jam, right? I would be best friends with all the associate deans for research so that I can have more than the Soil Center and a few other centers on the Office of Research website. I want to go to the Office of Research website and see everything that we're doing there being promoted by the college level. What are we doing with tech transfer? Now, my observation with tech transfer is that when I started in Missouri, everybody had an IP for their favorite soybean line or whatever. And everybody is going to sell their startup, right? Their dream is to sell their company for $100 million and make $10 million off of it, right? So that's the current for a lot of people. And then again, thinking about branding, what is the strong, unique brand that you have that is developed or can be enhanced that really has international scope and reach, that ticks all the marks for research, teaching, extension, and engagement. And then again, that happens when you have a shared solution. So what I like about this position is because the college is not very big, there's you can count on one hand how many heads of department there are. So you can sit around the table like we did for breakfast this morning and talk about, okay, are you going to go talk to the vet school? I'm going to go talk to people in natural resources. You're going to go talk to the College of Ed. What can we do as a group to make things happen forward? Okay, so you already have a plan again for this. This was your strategic imperative 3. So you got strengthened agri-tech and big data capacity. I think that's not unique. I think a lot of people are doing that, but I was quite interested in this maker space that you all proposed for that and where that's at. Enhancing the capacity for plant breeding and genomics to develop climate resilient crops. Everybody's doing high throughput phenotyping, but I think an investment in plants transformation and thinking more about what sensing and sentinels would be something that would enhance. And then again, can you solve real world challenges and high bigger? So a lot of people have been thinking about digitizing ag for the bioeconomy, but what is it that will be unique here or would embrace local industry? So I would be excited to, and I think what's good news is NSF is ahead of other agencies in thinking about inclusion and diversity. And they have called on this National Science Board document, which is bipartisanly supported, that if we want as a national interest, right, from the defense industry to the ag industry, we need to find the missing millions for the STEM workforce. More women, more scientists of color, more people from rural and underrepresented areas. That's a national priority for everybody. Colorado State could be on the head getting that. So again, I would align and advocate for department and the college to not only increase the percentage you have. So of course, as a former ADR, I quickly looked up what NSF BII $10 million centers you had, what ones are related in NEON. So you have some things in place that could be enhanced. I'm excited by sentinels and seeds myself. And you have some emerging centers. So you have this Institute for Plant Adaptation that's being developed, which I've seen talked about in DOE documents, for example. So somebody's plugging those things there. And how can these span interfaces that maybe others are not doing as well? Urban, rural, land, water, plant, animal, life. So at Missouri, the experience I bring to this is developing campus-wide strategic plan, college-wide strategic plan, data science, core facilities, genomics, omics, training grants that have strong outcomes. Moving from training and mentoring undergrads and grad students to actually faculty and staff. And this is a big thing I did the last 5 years, was develop this kind of symposium to center grant model where you bring together people that create multi-million-dollar projects around radiopharmaceuticals, addictions, material science, and also a race and justice center, Middleton Center. So here I'd be super, super excited to connect these in existing and emerging centers to all the people I'm talking about. But the key is, how do you connect while also focusing, right? So I like to be alliterative, plants, people, projects. So I was thinking something like Springstorm. Sustainability, sensors. We have this USDA seed facility. That's like world class. Seed biology, something with seed, put microbes all over them. But anyway, database and seeds, startups and students. So I'm experimenting here. It's too many. You need a hashtag, but something along those lines. And then find the resources. And here's my other big question here: is can you be nimble? Right? Can you take advantage of the fact that you don't have, like Cornell is trying to unite 165 faculty into one school now. Good luck. You don't have that many people, so can you actually have conversations and align? Okay, and then last slide, perfect. Okay, so this is the Martin Luther King, I have a dream speech, but this is your dream. This is the we have a dream speech, so let's embrace it. You all have developed a vision. We developed an agribusiness for tomorrow, transforming environmental challenges and opportunities. So how many places are really doing that, right? Doing agriculture and taking climate change seriously. Our research, education, outreach, and extension activities are more important now than ever. True statement. Every Democrat will raise their hand for that. And remain at the core of the land grant mission. Yes. This is a totally exciting time because, again, agriculture, environmental stewardship lies at the nexus of some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. So if you talk to young people, this is their existential threat. Is there going to be fire? Or do you really think you're going to go to Mars and terraform a planet when you can't even take care of your own? It already has an atmosphere. Right? Like, what's the reality? So I think there's no bigger Earth shot, not moonshot. The opportunity to play a leading role in developing solutions drives our ambition, dedication, and creativity. I am 100% aligned with that. And we can only achieve this vision through a strong and diverse community and through close collaborations with many stakeholders. Of course, because it's the expanded land grant university, right? It's for everybody. Okay, so I think that's it. People first, mission always, and thank you for your time. We can take a few questions. If you have any questions for Chris. Sorry if that was a little long, but we will have hours of.
There'll be a lot of opportunities later to.
I think I have an hour with extension and commodity groups. Yes.
Keith Poston, faculty in soil sciences. I'm curious, how much? So you were in the biology department at Missouri. How much interaction did you have with the ag departments there?
I personally a lot. So my best collaborators. So Gavin Conant was a bee systems biologist. He was in the animal science department doing cow flux balance analysis, things like this. So that was my best collaborator. Was animal science. Like I just mentioned, Jerry Taylor, Jared Decker, people that work on cattle. We were doing all the genome-wide association work across campus. There was no informatics for that. We built it because med school was going to do it, engineering was going to do it, so we created the campus-wide data platform for that. What I did not do, I was not the one who drove out in my pickup truck and my cowboy hat to talk to the soybean farmers. Which I was talking about. And I'm more than able to do that. It's just not a good use of my time. You know, if you get $180,000 a year, your time better be spent being able to get that, right? So, but my best collaborators were my department was a pre-med department. I had one good Jim Birchler, who's English geneticist, was my one who's on the real and right now the person who's there is applying. Ruby King, she's applied genetics. She teaches all the grad students the R classes and things like that. So I don't know if that.
No. I was just actually that was kind of a lead into what do you know? You know, what are the challenges that their soil and crop science department, if you will, is facing, or their ag college? Just out of curiosity, do you have any sense of that?
So